So you can see right away that this sphere is a lot more complicated looking than this mesh here. It's got a lot of segments. I don't think I need that many segments. So now here's where we go to the modify panel. Now the modify panel, this rainbow looking thing over here, is where you do almost everything in modeling. You've got all sorts of modifiers. These buttons are things that will allow you to modify the mesh. In general, you're actually not going to need them. Or at least not for low poly simple modeling like this. Right here, these parameters, this will allow me to shrink the sphere or make it larger just by scrolling up and down here or entering in a number like 10. The segments is how complicated it is. So by clicking down here, I'm making the sphere much less complicated. I like to work as uncomplicated as possible, but if you get too uncomplicated, then it starts looking more blocky and sort of like a geosphere, which is ugly, not going to work. So I think that maybe 16 segments is probably about what I'll need. Now you have also these other options here. You can do something like just flatten it out a little. Now I'm controlling Z to undo that. And you can squash it as well. So it's a little bit similar to that, but kind of rolling it up. So control Z there. Mostly these buttons up here at the top are a lot of what you use in 3dsmax. This is called translate, and it's actually just being able to move the thing around. This is rotate. This is scale. And you have different options with scale where you can make it uniform or non-uniform. So in this case, let's say you also see that this is the axes of the world. This right here is pretty important. Right now it's on view. That means that the viewport I'm in, which is perspective, is the axes that it's using. So it's all relative to this viewport. I like to work in world view, which is relative to the world. It's pretty much the same as view in general, unless you change your view to something crazy. The other one that you'll use a lot is local. In this case, it's not changing anything because the sphere is right side up. But if I was to rotate the sphere like that, I think this actually only works with animation, but it'll end up doing kind of weird things with something like a sphere or something like this easy little model. So I'm going to just go ahead and undo that. And working in world view. Now, here's the part where you're going to have to think ahead a little bit. You'll notice if I just flatten this sphere, then this thing is going to be on the top. Is that what I want for this armband, or do I want something like a sphere on its side? You'll notice over here that I have the snap toggle on. This, if you right click on it, you can change the percentage and the angle and so forth. Right now I have it on 1 degree. That means that when I rotate something, it always snaps to 1 degree. So it doesn't go between degrees. It's not going to go 0.025 degrees. It's always going to go 1 degree. I find this very helpful in 3dsmax, especially if you want to kind of mirror things or make things look uniform and even. You know, for instance, if I want to rotate this negative 90 degrees, it's very easy to do. Now, if I didn't have that snap toggle on, you can see that it goes between degrees and it might take me a little bit longer. Or, of course, you can always just type it in down here. So I think that's the x-axis, so I could just type in negative 90 and there it is. Okay, so now if I flatten it from here, this might be the basic shape that I want to work with. Lengthen it, flatten it, and I'm going to position it down here, rotate it a bit. You can always, there are all sorts of shortcuts in Max. So T is your top view, and F is your front view. Press F3 if you want to see things filled out. F4 to toggle the mesh on and off. F3 to toggle this on and off. Now if I was to try to rotate around in the front viewport or the top viewport, you'll notice it kind of goes a little crazy and it says user. That means it's an isometric view. It's not true perspective. It's just trying to approximate it. So if you want to get back to a perspective view, you press P, and that's your shortcut to perspective.